closed doors, or even behind iron walls, to feel the need to be set free. You want to liberate your mind, controlling secrets, yet you will find the need to be set free. And the Lord says, captives be free, just come to me. I'll break those chains that hold you down.
Hi, welcome to Heroes of Hope. Today we have with us Jacqueline Filis from the YMCA. But first, we're so glad to have you with us with Heroes of Hope show. This show has been designed specifically to bring organizations, testimonies, and churches that have programs there in their locations to be able to address the drug epidemic here in Staten Island. So we're so excited to be able to have Jacqueline Filis with us. Welcome to Heroes of Hope. We thank you so much for coming out. And I know the viewers are probably wanting to hear the first thing is in reference to you telling us about a little more about yourself in reference to who you are, you know, you live here and things to that effect.
Sure, thank you for having me a part of this. It's great to be a part of Heroes of Hope, not only with the TV show, but everything that you have going on across the island. So I'm Jackie Filis. I'm the Executive Director of the YMCA Counseling Service. Most people don't realize that the YMCA has a counseling center. We're actually the only counseling service throughout the 5 boroughs that the YMCA runs. We have 2 locations on Staten Island, one on the North Shore and one on the South Shore. I've been at the Y for 16 and a half years. I started out as a front desk person, I became a counselor, I became a program director, and about 6.5 years ago I was proud to become the executive director of the agency. My background is in social work. I'm a social worker, a licensed certified clinical social worker. I'm also a CASAC, which means that I'm a credentialed alcoholism and substance abuse counselor. I have a lot of experience working with mental health populations as well as substance abuse populations, and then everything that kind of comes along with both of those afflictions. So this work is really my passion, and I'm proud to work at the agency I do and also to be able to help the people that we help every day.
When it comes to this drug epidemic here in Staten Island that has plagued us, what are your thoughts in reference to how, you know, things have been evolving and you know, whenever we pick up the paper here as islanders, we're seeing some chaotic things happening. What are your thoughts concerning it?
I have so many thoughts about it, but the primary thing that comes to mind is devastation. I feel like this epidemic has been growing over the past 10 years. It's becoming more and more problematic and devastating across the island, especially over the last few years. Not only are people themselves devastated, but their families are. It's ripping families apart. Families are losing their loved ones at rates that are unheard of, and the effect that it's having on the community and families is huge. I think a lot of the times we talk about the immediate loved ones, and sometimes we lose sight of just how many people one person's life touches. Children, parents, significant others, aunts, uncles, cousins. One person can touch over 50 other people's lives, and the loss of one person, whether to the grips of addiction or whether to unfortunate death as a result of addiction, the loss of that loved one is hugely impactful for people. And a lot of the time the kids living in those families don't have the words to express what they're feeling by witnessing the addiction, by having to go through the loss of their loved one. And it's something that the Y does, that we try to really work with the family as a whole, from the littlest children all the way up to adults, parents, significant others, whatever it takes. We don't only want to help the person that is struggling, we want to help everybody around them. You know,
sometimes we, in the church, realm, work with people in the same way that you're speaking of, and we notice that a pattern takes place when someone either passes away or is addicted to drugs. It's devastation to the family, but the younger ones, either the children or the siblings, even though they see the devastation and the destruction, for some reason it becomes like a generational curse where something just keeps spiraling out of control. Do you see that also sometimes with different families that you're able to work with, that it goes from one to the next in the family?
Absolutely. It's been proven that drug addiction goes back generations. Not always, obviously. Somebody can fall into addiction for a bunch of reasons, and it doesn't have to mean that there's a family history, but if you do have a family history of addiction, there's a much more likelihood that you yourself is going to turn to addiction. Maybe not drug addiction, maybe it's gambling, maybe it's food addiction, maybe it's addiction to bad relationships, but you're going to find yourself in that addictive pattern. And the more education and skills that you have to counteract that genealogy, the better chances that you have that you're not going to become addicted in some way yourself. One of the programs at the Y is called Little Steps. Little Steps is a program for kids who are growing up in a home where there's addiction. A lot of times it's mom or dad who are addicted or were addicted, but we're seeing more and more kids coming in because brother or sister is addicted, or an aunt that lives with them, or something like that. And Little Steps does a few things. It gives the kids the language to talk about what they're seeing in their house. It gives them an outlet to talk about those things in a safe place. It helps them to see that they're not alone, that there's other kids and there's other families that are struggling just like they are. And it helps to teach them the 3 C's, that they didn't cause the addiction, that they can't cure the addiction, but that they can learn to cope with it. We really try to arm the kids in Little Steps with a lot of coping skills that they're going to need to not only address what's happening in their lives right now, but also to manage life on life's terms as they grow up. Because we know that they have a much more likelihood that they can become addicted themselves, we want to give them the life skills that they're going to need to combat difficulties that are going to come up in life. It's inevitable that we're going to face adversity in life, and we want to give the kids in our program all of the tools that they're going to need to help to manage that, so that they don't travel down the road of their loved ones before them.
That's a very, very powerful group. What are some of the other groups also that you have established there at the YMCA in reference to teenagers and also adults? And I've also heard that your organization, the YMCA, is also affiliated with working with the court system and things like that. Can you share more about those type of things?
Sure. So our agency is an outpatient program, and we are dedicated to prevention, treatment, and recovery services. So I'll tell you a little bit about what we do in all of those facets.
Yeah.
As far as prevention goes, most of the work that we do in prevention happens outside of our 4 walls, in the community, most often in schools, community centers, suspension sites, places where kids are, and we go to them and we provide them with what we call evidence-based practices. So it's like curriculum-based programs that are age-appropriate and have been tested and proven to have a positive impact on not only delaying or preventing substance abuse, but also addressing other life issues. Some of the programs that we deliver are not only focused on drug education, but really more importantly and more often on life skills development, coping skills development, conflict resolution skills, healthy decision making, healthy living skills, anti-bullying, anti-violence tactics, all things that not only address substance use, but again, arm the kids with life skills so that they're able to address different things that they're going to experience as kids, as teenagers, and as adults. We're doing that right now at 21 locations across Staten Island, and then we also offer in-house prevention services. So we know that if we can address kids now before it turns to substance abuse, there's a much more likelihood that they're going to succeed in life. So we try to address whatever high risk behaviors are happening now so that they don't continue down a negative path. A lot of our kids that come in for prevention counseling have family difficulties, truancy issues, poor grades in school, whatever it is that's kind of like saying something's happening that we have to address now because we don't want it to get worse. We can address those things with the kids in counseling on a short-term basis to be able to kind of get them back on track and then be able to manage whatever's happening in their life in a better way. We do anger management classes for youth. We do parenting skills classes for parents. So there's a lot of what we're doing in prevention, both in-house, but especially outside in the community. When it comes to treatment, we do treatment both for teens or youth that are struggling with substance use and also for adults who are struggling. As part of our program, we do individual, group, family therapy. We also have specialized groups for people who are managing chronic pain or are struggling with codependency issues, have trauma histories, have co-occurring mental health disorders. We really try to provide all the wraparound services somebody is going to need to be able to combat their addiction. We arm them obviously with relapse prevention and coping skills, but we also try to provide them with some health assessments and get them connected to medical providers, because a lot of our people haven't addressed those issues in a very long time. We have psychiatry staff available that are able to work with somebody in addition to their clinician on addressing any co-occurring mental health issues that might be going on. And we have a medical doctor on staff who prescribes addiction medication if that's a path that somebody wants to utilize in order to support their recovery, either on a short-term basis or a more longer term. But we try to aim for somebody to be off medication-assisted treatment by the time they complete the program, although that doesn't always work for everybody, and we kind of meet each person where they're at. We try to really individualize treatment to be able to meet each person's unique needs. And beyond that, like I said earlier, we really try very hard to involve the whole family. And family means whatever that means to that person. It could be a significant other, it could be the family that they were born into, the family that they've created for themselves, or a network of friends and support groups that are close for them. Whoever it is that is impactful to a person, we want to get them in and get them involved in the process.
Right.
We have a family association group that meets every Wednesday night. It's not only open to the loved ones of the people in our program, but it's also open to the community at large. So that group's a great mix of people who have a loved one who's in recovery, maybe in our program, maybe in another program, but also community members who have a loved one who's still out there struggling. And the older members who have kind of been through the process are able to help and guide the newer members on tactics that have worked for them and how they've worked to manage the issue. It's very similar to Al-Anon, which is a support group for family members, but it has a therapist and a facilitator that helps to guide the group discussion. So right now, unfortunately, we've also had to start a bereavement group that we're doing in collaboration with St. Clair's Church, and we're looking to support parents who have lost a child to this disease. So that's another subset of what we do in treatment that we're offering to the community. And on the recovery end, we offer continued treatment for people even after they complete our program, or maybe have completed another program or not, and they've been in recovery for a while, but they recognize that there's still things that they need to work on in order to support their recovery long term. So some people come to us once a week, once a month, just to kind of get that continued support to keep their recovery
stay
strong.
connected.
Yeah.
You know, I want to emphasize to the viewers that everything that was said, I hope you heard that there's 21 locations throughout Staten Island that you can take advantage of, all right? And you're going to get more information in a minute, but keep that in mind, that there's 21 locations. So there's one close to you, and you can reach out to Jacqueline or staff, and they'll direct you in the right way. I wanted to ask you also in reference to the court system, you know, without, of course, mentioning names or anything, we've had a couple of people in our congregation that have been affiliated with you that actually had to go through some hard times with family court and things that went on in their homes. And we were able to work with them on the spiritual end, and they were going to you in the counseling sessions of the groups. And I never mentioned this to you because of the fact that it's all confidential, but you know, I'm asking you now, how does that work in reference to the bridge that you guys built with the YMCA concerning the court system? Because that is so important to be able to not just have an agency out there, but that we're connected to the main line, the mainstream of what's going on when it comes to the court system in any way possible.
So we work with the court system a lot. About half of the clients that come through our programs are referred by either the court system, child welfare, or some other type of referring agency. And half of the people come on their own because they recognize that they have something that they want to work on, or family and friends have recognized and kind of have pushed them into treatment. So we're very used to working with the court system and other external factors that are happening in a person's life. Not only do we work with criminal justice, we work with family court, we work with child welfare preventative services, and the goal is really to coordinate care and coordinate services so that we make sure together that we're meeting everybody's needs. Whether you're court mandated to treatment or you're coming in on your own free will, we find that there's the same likelihood of success, you have the same chance of getting it and being able to come out free of your addiction on the other end. Although it's something that you'll work on for the rest of your life, a lot of people are able to succeed regardless of what brought them in. We have very strong relationships with criminal justice, with the different agencies that are overseeing people who are in that system, whether it's probation, parole, task, treatment court. There's a lot of ways that people can get brought into the criminal justice and a lot of ways that they can get brought into treatment as a result of their involvement with criminal justice. And we work with them all the time. Our counselors attend court appearances with clients where they need to, either to support them because they're nervous or support them because they've had a struggle, and we want to show them and the court that we're backing them and that we can help them, and also just as a way to liaison with the court so that we make sure they have all the information they need to help manage the case for the client in their best interests. We work with child welfare. We have a satellite office in the ACS building where we're doing assessments for people who come in that have a case that is related to substance use issues. So we really try to partner with all the different kinds of criminal justice, social services, child welfare agencies. We work very closely with Staten Island Treatment Court, which is a court that oversees people who get arrested for drug offenses. And we're constantly giving updates. There's a system that we do reporting on every week so that we're all in touch with what's going on with a client and make sure that we're coming up with a plan that's going to be able to best meet their needs.
Yeah, and I'd like to say that it's been a blessing for us as a church, as one of the churches, and also as an association, to be able to have that relationship with the YMCA. And I know that the link between that is because of relationships that we've been able to establish and things like that. And the reason why I'm saying that is because families, like one specific family that we both know about, but the reality is that their lives have been changed, because of working together. We see them every Sunday now in the church, but we know that the road that they had to take was to be able to be linked in their church and to be at the YMCA to get the counseling that they needed. So on both ends, they've been able to see their family situation and whatever else was taking place to come to a healthy place that they're in right now. And that's a tremendous thing to be able to say. And yeah, because usually organizations and churches work separate. And it's like, well, they're not a Christian organization or this and that. And we're looking at this in a whole different view and with different eyes concerning the epidemic itself. And so that leads me to ask you, what are your thoughts about, what you've been seeing for the last few years in reference to organizations coming together, churches coming together, and public officials coming together, and everybody literally just coming together to make a difference. What are your thoughts concerning that?
So my first thought, just to address what you said a little bit earlier, spirituality is a huge thing for a lot of our clients. Not everybody. Some people aren't ready yet. Some people don't have that connection. But for some, it really is a huge source of strength and support for them. And regardless of where they're getting that from, whether it's spirituality or not, having as much support and strength behind them as possible is only going to be what helps them to get better quicker. Family, community support is huge to a person in recovery. Without that, it's much more difficult. Not impossible, but much more difficult to get and stay healthy. Yeah. So that's one reason why it's hugely important and amazing that so many organizations of different types are getting together to help address this issue. But I think most importantly, and bigger than anything, is the fact that no one person, no one organization can do this alone. This epidemic, the numbers are staggering and devastating, and we can't do enough, nearly enough, to try to start to reverse this alone. So the more we can come together and to come up with plans and do things as a team, the better it is for everybody. What I can do on my own, what my agency can do, is not nearly as much as what a coalition of people coming together can do. And I think Heroes of Hope is definitely an example of that.
Yeah, and there's many different things that are going on here in Staten Island, and I'm honored to be a part of Heroes of Hope. But the reality is that it's only as powerful as the unity that we have behind it, right? But then from talking about coalition, that leads me right to asking, in reference to TISA, tackling youth substance abuse. You now sit on the executive chair on the board at TISA. Maybe you could share some more details about what's going on. We've had different people on the show that've given statistics and things like that, but since you're the executive chair now, we really want to hear from you in reference to what you see in the future, or where we're going with TISA and how things are being planned.
So I've been involved with TISA for about the last 6 years since its initial forming. And this year I was able to take on the position of chair. I was the vice chair prior to that. And I'm really proud to hold that role and to be part of that coalition. It really is amazing to see so many different stakeholders from so many different sections of our community coming together, specifically looking to address this issue. I think one of the things that's great about TISA is we try to get input from as many different stakeholders as possible, from youth all the way through criminal justice and local elected officials. I think that's a definite strength, and people are really committed to the mission and to the cause. And we've been able to put together a really great core group of volunteers who are helping us to spread the message and do workshopping in the community. TISA's work can kind of be broken up into probably 4 different topics. We really formed around these things after doing a lot of research to figure out what could be driving this epidemic. And a lot of research was done specifically on Staten Island to make sure that we were doing something targeted to address our local community. So the 4 areas that we work on the most, the first one is social norms. So that looks at addressing the attitudes and beliefs of Staten Islanders and how we can try to start to reverse some of that thinking into more healthier thinking. In our early research, we found that a lot of Staten Islanders were, I don't want to use the word condoning, but were accepting of maybe alcohol and marijuana use because it didn't seem as bad as the pill epidemic that was going on. And we're starting to see the tide shift a little bit with that. We've done a lot of community education events, a lot of workshops. The Staten Island Advance has done a great job sharing and spreading a lot of stories. And we're actually starting to see now that youth's use of alcohol, marijuana, and other substances is decreased from the last time we've surveyed kids in the school, which is a huge accomplishment and a great thing that is looking like things are starting to turn around. So social norms, we really try to go out there and educate community members of all sorts, from parents to grandparents to community members in schools, anybody and everybody that'll listen. The other thing that we looked at and tried to address was the availability of alcohol, marijuana, and prescription drugs, and now we've added heroin to that list, and we're trying to look at where people are getting these things and how can we try to reverse that. So we definitely were an advocate for iStop after we learned that Staten Island had the highest rate of prescriptions written per capita than any other borough, and that was researched a few years ago. And now we're starting to see again the tide shift. DOHMH came out, they did a lot of detailing, and doctors are writing less prescriptions now than they did in the past. iStop helped to control the amount of prescription pills that were getting out into the community, and we also looked at access in homes, and we encourage people to get out and clean out their medicine cabinets and go to pill drop-off boxes located in the precincts and get rid of any pills that were in their homes. When we started to see that the availability of pills were decreasing. With that though comes what we saw was the increase of heroin, and we kind of knew that that was a possibility, and we knew that that may come, but we also knew that it was important to decrease the availability of the prescription drugs. And now we're working
Absolutely.
very closely with criminal justice and law enforcement to make sure that we're all doing the work that we can together to stop the influx of heroin and other things from entering our community, and whatever we can do as a coalition and individual agencies we're doing to help address that. Another thing that we looked at was policy and advocacy. I just got back from Albany, talking with a lot of our local electeds about ways that they can help this epidemic, and the support that we need in order to help do that. I think we're very lucky on Staten Island. We have a very strong and dedicated group of elected officials that know very well what's happening here and are doing a lot to address what's going on in our community. I don't know if every other community can say that, but I'm proud to say that about Staten Island. And the last thing that we look at is the continuum of care. And that means what services are available on Staten Island and how can we strengthen those services. We're also lucky on the island because the service providers throughout the community work very well together. None of us are afraid to refer people to another program if we feel like that program can help them more or in a different way. We work very well together, and we want to try to strengthen that continuum. So we're doing things like education and training programs. We're bringing people together to talk about big issues, anything that we can do in that group to really strengthen the services that are available, we try to do.
You know what I love? I love the fact that we were able to, so far, turn around a concept that was called Heroin Island, and literally become, through TISA and all of us coming together, all the organizations, be able to become like a trailblazer, become more of a pace setter for not just Staten Island, but for every borough. Because we're setting an example of literally working together to attack this. I want to give you 60 seconds, Jacqueline, to look into the camera and just share with the viewers something from your heart in reference to anything you want. It could be about your organization, it could be just from you as a mom, and whichever way you want to go. I want you to just look into the camera and talk to the viewers and let them know what you're feeling right now, what you desire for them to know before we wrap this up today.
I think the most important thing for me to share is that recovery is possible, that we have to focus on prevention and the importance of that and educating our youth, but that treatment and being involved in treatment really does work. And any support that you can get for yourself or your loved one is hugely impactful. Whether you're struggling yourself or you have a loved one who's struggling, don't wait to reach out for help. Sometimes we have to love our family members enough to interfere in their lives. And today is the day. Don't wait another second, another day, another month. Today is the day to reach out and ask for the help. There's a lot of people on this island that are willing and able to give you the support that you need. Recovery is possible. Please seek it.
Thank you so much for tuning in with us today. Write down the information you're going to see at the end of the credits and get in touch with the YMCA. They'll be more than happy to serve you. God bless you.
Thank you.